There's some burrows way out there. Wild burrows. This is where they live. I'm trying to walk really slow so I don't scare these burrows, but we'll see how close we can get to them. So there's definitely 6 of them now, and they're starting to take notice of me. I think this is about as close as I'm going to get to them. They're used to the quiet solitude, not somebody trying to approach them. There's Boundary Peak, the highest point in the state of Nevada. To the right a little bit is Montgomery Peak, which is about 300 feet higher in elevation and is actually in California. So the state line runs right between those 2 peaks on that ridge. Coming into the Bishop, California area. There's the Sierra in the background. I think those are still considered the High Sierra, which, even though they're farther south, are the taller section of the Sierra Mountains. We're surprised at how many people are out and about in Bishop, California. There was one bakery, it was just packed with people, wasn't it?
Oh my gosh, yes.
We're just heading south of Big Pine on 395 South. Pulling into Manzanar, which was the Japanese internment camp during the World War II period. So what happened here is that a lot of the farmers that were Japanese Americans on the coast between Santa Barbara and Los Angeles, I think they were mostly strawberry farmers. A lot of them ended up here during the duration of the war, tragically, for security reasons. Of course, a lot of the men were highly decorated in the Second World War. The fighting Japanese American men were highly decorated. But unfortunately, probably a lot of their families spent a long time out here at Manzanar. And of course, now it's a monument. Manzanar War Relocation Center. Here we are. It's kind of like the concentration center of the West. Let's take a look, Kelly.
Okay.
Going through the main guard gate. Appears everything is labeled. Here's where the town hall was, and I believe this one is marked as the post office. That's where the post office was, and you can see the buildings are missing in this area. There's a prominent Joshua tree growing in the middle. Fantastic view, though. Another tragedy of war. Well, at least they had a nice view of the mountains. I'm sure some of the people that were incarcerated in Europe, in the Gulag and Siberia and different places, probably had it a lot rougher, not to say that they didn't have it rough here. Take a look at this. Highway US 395 goes right along the frontage of the old camp. It's kind of, take a look at these buildings. They kind of look like the old type of military or, you know, army housing or something. Take a look at these. I kind of like to get away from the main visitor center and just walk around and experience it for myself. Kind of get a mindset of how it might have been those years ago. Definitely looks like some old government housing. Look at all the tumbleweeds everywhere. It's really out here. That's the visitor center in the distance. That looks like a big airplane hangar to me. There's the beautiful Sierra right there. Other than the traffic on US 395, it's very quiet out here. Those were some vicious times of fighting. I know I'd read about the Japanese mistreating a lot of the Chinese prisoners and ransacking and doing some really awful atrocities in China. And we also had the Bantam Death March in the Philippines, and very, very brutal time. And at that time in our history, we just were concerned about the security of the country, and we weren't quite sure if some of the Japanese Americans had ties to Emperor Hirohito and his regime and so forth. So the people here were just a victim of the times. And like I said, I've seen some interviews with some of the American fighting men that were Japanese American that are highly decorated and just wanted to prove that they were American citizens. So imagine how tough it was being here and having a son in the army while you're incarcerated out here in the desert. That's the tragedy of war. It was the times. And I can see the perspective of both sides. So imagine for me, the tragedy would be, imagine you're a farmer, it's got some big field of strawberries outside of south of Santa Barbara along the coast, and the government rounds you up and you end up out here completely innocent, just caught up the fact that of your culture and your heritage. That was the times during the Second World War. Tower number 8. Sue Kunitomi Embre had this to say, quote, "The tower represents what the whole thing was about. Imprisonment, loss of civil liberties, loss of identity. The tower was the only icon, that and the barbed wire." Prickly tumbleweeds everywhere, as far as the eye can see almost. That's the traffic along the highway in the distance. Our museum curator, Kellie Zuniga, has a few things to say about Manzanar.
This is kind of the central part of the community. There's housing that way, and then this tree and this little plant stand thing here was here in 1942.
Wow, it was here in 1942. So that Joshua tree was there.
Yes.
Amazing. Here's this center planter with the Joshua tree on it. Now these trees can live to 150 years. Keep that in mind. And on the rock wall, it says, built by WWII, W-A-D-A, looks like X Crew, June 19, 1942. That's a barn owl looking at us. Maybe he's got a nest up there at that old guard tower number 8. He's definitely listening to me. He's looking over here too. You can see the face of that barn owl right there. He's real curious. Kellie was saying that this cactus is kind of weeping over like that because of the recent frost. Look at all the nails, Kellie.
Tons of them.
They're everywhere. There's the front gate with the 2 guard shacks.
You know, employees used to live out here too with everybody that was in the.
So they stayed here too?
They stayed here, yeah, with their families and everything, kids too.
Right. U.S. Civil Liberties Act, August 10th, 1988, quote, "The Congress recognizes that a grave injustice was done to both citizens and permanent resident aliens of Japanese ancestries by the evacuation, relocation, and internment of civilians during World War II," end of quote. It really feels like a nice spring day, but it's basically the end of January. It's still winter. And the mountains sure look pretty with the light snow on them. This building that I originally thought was an airplane hangar is the original old high school and the high school auditorium. It now houses the visitor center. And I'm not going to go in there today because it is open and everyone can go in there. I like to check out some of the less visited spots and just wander around. But Manzanar in Spanish means apple orchard. So there was a town here at one time called Manzanar, and the apple business didn't pay off, and Inyo County, California disbanded it as a town, and then later it was used for this center for the Japanese Americans that were interred here. And not too far up in the Sierra, towards that direction, you can't really actually see it from here, but that's Mount Whitney, and that is the highest peak in the lower 48 contiguous states of the United States. It's just a little bit taller than some of the ones in Colorado, and not as tall, I don't think, as some in Alaska. But I saw some pictures of the camp here, and it actually looked like fairly nice. I had a little park, and it was fairly clean. It wasn't too desperate looking like you see these camps in Europe and so forth. It looked almost suburban looking at the time. There's the back of the high school. So all in all, it looks like America did a fairly decent job considering what the circumstances were. After seeing some of the pictures of the residents and conditions here, it seemed to be very clean and civilized and not nearly as bad as what I was expecting. So Kelly, we're both gardeners and we love to garden, don't we?
Yes, we do. And in fact, some of the Japanese that were incarcerated here, they made gardens. They dug out holes and put ponds and had rock gardens with bridges and all that.
I saw some of the pictures. They were beautiful. You know, the Japanese are known for their Japanese gardens. I've been to the one in San Francisco at the tea garden, and it has a little bridge and the bonsai plants, the miniature trees, and the carp. They're very spiritual, like a spiritual reflective place to just kind of quiet and gather your thoughts, maybe even pray, you know?
Yeah.
And but surprisingly, some of the pictures that we saw here, they were some beautiful gardens that they made here. Now, of course, we look out, it's just all a bunch of tumbleweeds.
Right.
Well, all the Japanese gardens are gone, and it's back to just a bunch of tumbleweeds. But it still is pretty with those mountains right there, isn't it? That's amazing that they were able to make something beautiful out of the situation that they were in, wasn't it?
Yep.
This is the old fire station. So Kelly, we just stopped at this Manzanar just out of curiosity. It was on the way. It wasn't our original stop, but we were so impressed with the displays here and the history and everything that we do want to come back. We just want to emphasize that this is not the reason that we're on our adventure today. We just happened to stop here on the way, but we will stop back. What did you have to? What was your thoughts on seeing the
I would
history
love
here?
to see. I could spend all day here. It was very interesting.
Yes, it's very, very interesting and thought-provoking.
Yes.
And we'll try to do another video where we specialize just in Manzanar. But like today, this is the place that we stopped along the way. We said we're gonna check it out and have lunch. Here's our lunch spot, our picnic spot, and here's the spread at Manzanar.